Hi everyone, and welcome to Putting the Bell in House Ball, where we explore the origins, impacts, and musical idols of house ball. My name's Amy Nguyen, and I will be your host through this journey. In the last episode, we discussed how house ball and voguing has left an impact on popular culture that still exists today. In this episode, we will dive into the impact house ball culture has made on the queer liberation movement. This is our last episode, and I'm glad everyone is here with me to see the end of this podcast. For nearly a century, the house ball scene has been a space of freedom for Black and brown queer people. From its inception, house ball saw how even in queer spaces, racism left Black and brown individuals marginalized and discriminated against. To fight against the systemic racism, violence, housing insecurity, and HIV crisis that invaded their lives, Black and brown queer people banded together in community through house ball and other subcultures. Further, these communities fostered the ideas of found family for queer people who were kicked out of their old families. The formation of houses gave homeless and destitute queer individuals a home and family they could rely on. During this period, many queer teens were forced out of their homes, so having a place to go to gave them a sense of safety and belonging. During the early queer liberation movement, the frontrunners and noisemakers were mainly transgender people of color. For example, Marsha P. Johnson. Johnson was a major voice in the early queer liberation movement, helping organize marches and demonstrations all along the East Coast from New York to Washington, D.C. Her voice was one of the early queer voices that fought against police brutality against queer people, and she became the herald of the queer liberation movement. Tragically, she was found dead in the river, and her case was never truly investigated. If you want to learn more about her, the things she's done, and the impact she's left in the queer community and on the queer liberation movement, please check out her documentary on Netflix. In 2019, Layleen Cubilet Polanco, a Black woman of Cuban Dominican descent and a member of the House of Extravaganza, was left to die in prison by police officers after being arrested on the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall riots. She had had an epileptic attack and was not given any medical aid during her stay within police custody. In response, during the 2020 Black Trans Lives Matter rally in New York, young dancers used Vogue to grieve her and other transgender lives lost. They used their bodies as a form of expression and a form of showing their freedom in their choices against the oppressive system that they have all been forced to live in. The very same communities that developed house ball and Vogue are the front runners in leading movements to defund the police system and abolish ICE. Vogue and house ball was created from struggle, and now the descendants of the first Voguers struggle to continue the queer liberation movement as we know it today. It's important to note that queer Black and brown individuals are often forgotten when speaking of the queer liberation movement. Transgender queens of the Black and brown variety were often forgotten and written out of storybooks to make it more palatable to white eyes. So take your time to go do this research and look into the true frontrunners of our queer liberation, the people that gave us the freedom to speak about being queer openly and happily today. All right, everyone, it looks like this is all I have for us. This is the final episode of Putting the Bell in House Ball, where we discuss the origins, impacts, and musical idols of house ball. I'm so glad to have everyone on this journey with me. I hope you've learned a couple of things at least, and maybe I'll see you next time.